Closing. As a conclusion, we look at some coda-like passages at the end of the chapter that nicely summarize some of the themes we have discussed, although they will be stated somewhat differently. The name of God's Son is one, and you are enjoined to do the works of love because we share this oneness. Our minds are whole because they are one. If you are sick, you are withdrawing from me. Yet you cannot withdraw from me alone. You can only withdraw from yourself and me. If we and Jesus represent the same self in truth, then pushing him away, our differing forms of specialness, means pushing away both him and our self, capital S. Since he wants us to understand the painful effects of withdrawing from him, he gently reminds us who we are by reminding us that together we are God's Son. You have surely begun to realize that this is a very practical course, and one that means exactly what it says. If we want to return home and remember the love of God, if we want to feel the peace of Jesus, we must share his love and peace with our brothers by not seeing them as separate from us. This frees heaven oneness to be expressed in the practical experiences of our everyday lives, wherein we learn the benefit to us of choosing the Holy Spirit's vision of shared interests over the ego's separate ones. I would not ask you to do things you cannot do, and it is impossible that I could do things you cannot do. Given this, and given this quite literally, nothing can prevent you from doing exactly what I ask, and everything argues for your doing it. I give you no limits because God lays none upon you. We can accept the atonement for ourselves. We can let go of the grievances that keep us separate from others. Jesus shows us how frightened we are of forgiveness and why, and how we can change our minds. Because our minds are as powerful as his, there is no limit to what we can choose. For how can love be limited? When you limit yourself, we are not aware of one mind. And that is sickness. Your sickness is not of the body, but of the mind. All forms of sickness are signs that the mind is split and does not accept a unified purpose. Our physical and psychological symptoms of the body are the shadowy fragments or projections of the split mind's decision to be separate from Jesus and the Holy Spirit, and so maintain the separation. Since sickness is only of the mind, so too must healing be. Sickness equals the thought of separation. Healing equals the thought of forgiveness. We can see incidentally how our master composer pulls together the chapter's themes in this moving peroration to the 8th movement of his symphony. The unification of purpose, then, is the Holy Spirit's only way of healing. Healing, once again, pertains not to the body, healing words or hands, rituals, etc., but only to the healing of the mind, unifying our purpose with the Holy Spirit's. By choosing against attack and for the miracle, let miracles replace all grievances, we undo the dissociation that had sustained the ego and identify with the only purpose that can heal. This is because it is the only level at which healing means anything. The reestablishing of meaning in a chaotic thought system is the way to heal it. Meaning is reestablished by choosing it over the meaningless, the Holy Spirit over the ego. It is the shift from the meaningless of the mindless, the body and the world, to the meaningfulness of the mindful, the decision-making mind. Your task is only to meet the conditions for meaning, since meaning itself is of God. Yet your return to meaning is essential to His because your meaning is part of His. Your healing then is part of His health since it is part of His wholeness. We have already seen that the conditions for meaning are forgiveness and seeing the common purpose in all things. The inevitable result of this vision is the peace that awakens us to knowledge. To state it one more time, health has nothing to do with the body. After all, the Holy Spirit and God have no bodies, and their health is the mind's perfect wholeness. We are an integral part of that wholeness as well, and our feeling dis-ease on any level is due to having chosen to separate ourselves from the health of our wholeness by seeing God's Son as guilty. He cannot lose this, but you cannot know it. Yet it is still His will for you, and His will must stand forever and in all things. And this is, but you can not know it, not cannot know it. Get it? This is the atonement principle, and we have the power to accept it or not. And I'm going to repeat it. He cannot lose this, but you cannot know it. Yet it is still His will for you, and His will for you must stand forever and in all things. Happily, our rejection of the atonement principle does not mean we have left God's oneness. Everyone is free to refuse to accept his inheritance, but he is not free to establish what his inheritance is. Our inheritance as God's Son, His will, remains immaculate and safe because we have never left our source. Of such, my dog is really annoying today, I'm so sorry. Of such remembrance is God's kingdom on earth. This movement of our symphony is a wonderful summary of all we have discussed in the earlier movements, at the same time extending Jesus' teachings of forgiveness. We close this volume by reiterating that these inspired words mean nothing unless we apply them to our specific lives, bringing our illusions of separation to the reality of the oneness within, the darkness of guilt to the healing light of forgiveness. And that is the closing for Chapter 8 in Volume 1. By Ken Wapnick. So this is Journey Through the Text. We have 4 volumes, so I'll be moving on to Volume 2 tomorrow. It's by the Foundation for A Course in Miracles. Okay, I'm just going to revisit this. They sell it on the Foundation for A Course in Miracles, or you can purchase it on Amazon. And I'll be reading them through the until I finish. And this is Volume 1. And we'll just look at a few things. Please see our website for a complete listing of publications. They're not in Temecula anymore, I don't think. Maybe they are. So, this is Ken Wapnick's interpretation. And he was a close friend of the author, as many of you probably know if you're even listening to me. So we just read the closing. This is the graph that he often referred to, especially in the beginning of this book. You can certainly pause. You could probably find this online, no doubt. Let's see if there's anything else. Frequently quoted phrases and terms. So there we go. I thank you. Tomorrow we will start Volume 2. I tore this thing up. But I've enjoyed this journey. So tomorrow we start Journey of Volume 2. I love you. Have a beautiful day. And thank you so much for joining with me. Bye-bye.